Welcome to the Music Reel. I'm your
Thank you.
host, Nicola Burton, and today I have the wonderful pleasure of speaking with Grace Knight. Now, Grace Knight is an English-born Australian singer, songwriter, musician, author, of course, from the incredible 80s pop group Eurogliders, and then your amazing solo career. Grace, how are you? It is so lovely to see you after all of these years.
It's lovely to see you and you, Manny,
Hey,
both
Grace,
of you.
how are you?
And I'm great. I'm really good. I'm happy and fit and well.
Now, you're
And very svelte.
very svelte. There you go. Look at you. You're in Victoria, aren't you?
I am.
What's it like down there right now? I hate to ask, but I'm going to go for it. What's it like? You're in lockdown again.
We're in lockdown again. It's quiet. It's very quiet. And I'm glad that we're in lockdown. I think we need to take New Zealand's approach and go in hard. And I know that that's really upsetting for a lot of people. And I have to be a bit careful because I know some people are struggling, but I can't see the point of having a lockdown and then having a little, sort of outbreak somewhere and then that spreading and going back into another lockdown. I think we've got to pull the Band-Aid off quickly.
Yeah, totally agree. So obviously you've had to cancel a lot of shows since March. Tell us about what your plans were.
Oh, I don't know if I can do it without crying. Look, oddly enough, this year was one of the best years I have had for many a year. And that's with doing my solo gigs, doing Eurogliders gigs, and Wendy Matthews and I have put a show together that we rehearsed. We got the most pumping band, and we did 2 gigs, I think, 2 or 3 gigs, and then it all went to pot. So for me, it's like, well, and for all musicians, it's a bummer, but it really was shaping up to be a fantastic year, which I was really thrilled about because I'm coming towards the end of my career, and I want to go. I don't want to die wondering. I want to go out and do what I want and, all of that sort of stuff. And so I'm just I keep telling myself it's just been postponed. You can still go out with a crash.
Exactly. So you've got, I think, some shows scheduled for later this year, haven't you? Well, fingers crossed if things are
yeah, look, I'm especially now that we've gone into our second lockdown, no one's really going to want to have Victorians on aeroplanes. So I've got shows in Tasmania, New South Wales and Victoria for September, October and November.
right.
And I can't see that happening.
Yeah, we've heard that as well. Now, I should bring Manny in. Now, Manny, I haven't even introduced you. How are you going, Manny?
I'm going well, Nikki. How's yourself?
Good. Do you want to have a chat? What have you got for Grace? What questions?
Look, I have to say, after hearing that, Grace, I can't subscribe that you're at the end of your career. I sort of see it like as a renaissance of Grace Knight, and I think you've got many, many years to go. And I don't think age, look, when we all first came into the industry, it was a very youthful industry. And I think that the reality is with our ageing population base is that there's a wonderful market that stays with you right through to the end of your career. So I really believe that you've probably got many, many, many more years of wonderful singing for us out there at the moment, Grace. So I don't subscribe to that in any way, shape or form.
I should clarify that and say on the basis of math and statistics, I'm coming to the end of my career.
Wow, fair comment.
Yeah, I'll be 65 in a few months, and
wow.
So statistically, most of my career is behind me.
Fair, well, that's a fair.
But I love what I'm doing, and
it shows.
Yeah, I love what I'm doing. I'm incredibly grateful that I've had, I've been doing this for over 40 years and no one is more surprised than myself. So I'm always very, very grateful to my really loyal fans that keep me working.
What's that wonderful term? Cream always rises to the top, as they say.
Oh, listen to you.
So I guess we've had an interesting relationship over the years from the Eurogliders days when I first came into the music industry and right through to now, actually. So we've done a fair bit of stuff together, Grace. I guess my question is where we were probably about. I'd like to get your insight as to when you first came into the music industry. And I get some interesting opinions here. When we all first got into the music industry, and then where we are now, and then the challenges, especially with COVID. So let's take COVID out of the equation. We know what that is, and we know where that's going. But if you were a young artist, well, I mean, you were a young artist, but if you were a young artist right now, what wisdom would you impart so they could progress their careers?
Oh, well, obviously this part of wisdom is based on my own career, and I would highly recommend that they get good music legal advice.
Yes.
That's my words of wisdom. It doesn't help if your dad's a tax accountant or consultant. You need a musical someone in the music, that deals with music contracts and things like that. So I would cover myself and pay for the very best advice that I could get.
Because that was what you actually said to me when I first met you. I think it was 2000, and my kids were doing a show at the Broadbeach Mall, and you probably won't remember it, but in the back in the green room, you spent an hour talking to those kids. They were all like 11, 12, 13, telling them exact that, and it changed their whole perspective of the business. So thank you for that. And I think everyone who's watching this, listen to what Grace says. So many things fuck up in this industry when you don't have the contract right from the beginning. Isn't that right?
Don't say that to an 11-year-old.
You did, and it changed their lives. It was fantastic because they were all ears, all listening to you. They couldn't believe that someone of your standing would take the time to even talk to them. It was fantastic. So yeah, thank you for that.
I enjoy young people. I enjoy them very much.
Obviously. Now, you released your book, Pink Suit for a Blue Day, in 2010, which was groundbreaking and incredibly courageous. Do you have time? Is there a new one coming, Grace?
No, there isn't. Look, I wrote that book for a very, very specific reason. I always kind of get a bit shocked when people, it's been a while since I wrote that book, but I get a bit shocked when people talk about it because I never feel like I'm really prepared to go there. But I wrote it for people that were suffering under the effects of childhood sexual abuse. And I wanted to explain how the tentacles kind of reach into every part of your being, your psyche. And because of those tentacles, they force you to make maybe not the right decisions, but decisions based on that fear and those effects. And most of all, I realized after 50 years of trying to fix myself, I realized that I was actually the perpetrator I was the one that was feeding this ongoing, low self-esteem and self-hatred. What happened to me happened when I was a little girl, and by the time I was, a 40 or 50-year-old woman, these effects were still there. And it dawned on me, I was like, it's me, it's my head that is keeping this alive, that's constantly feeding it. And if I could interrupt those thoughts and change those thoughts, I could lead a healthier existence. And so it was very confronting for me to write it and expose myself, but I knew what it was like to have those effects, and feel that sort of, you know, lack of self-worth. And I wanted to tell that story so that other people that were feeling that could maybe just say, oh, right, hang on a second, there is another way.
That's courageous. It's truly courageous.
It was such a great book, and so many acts out there have actually read that book, because mental health has become such a big part of our industry, trying to understand what drives us to dig so deep and have that, you know, that incredible emotional expression. So I know it's very painful for you, but thank God you actually wrote that book and published it. I think it's made a big difference to thousands of people's lives. I'm not sure if you realise that, Grace, but it really has made a big difference.
Oh, look, I wrote the book saying to myself, if I can help one person, it's worth it, because of, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have that kind of monster hanging over you all the time. And it's great. It's fantastic to be able to snap those chains and, you know, break out from it and say, well, now this is me. This I'm going to have me for the rest of my life now, however long that might be.
I love it. And I'm looking behind you there. You've got something interesting hanging. What's going on behind there? What's that all about?
Yes.
I want to know.
Yeah, I thought you might like this. I pulled it out because I thought you might be interested. So I should just make a little introduction and say that before I became a singer, I thought I wanted to be a fashion designer. And I went to a tech college in Perth for about 8 months, and I learned the very, very basics of pattern cutting. And then, of course, I joined Eurogliders, and with that very, very basic understanding of pattern cutting, I was able to really create all my stage gear, and for some of the band, some of the time, not all the time, but throughout my career, I've made maybe about 95% of what I wear on stage. I've made myself. Wow. So I'll show you this little number. This is inspired. This is inspired by the Game of Thrones. I recently purchased it's called a dye sublimation printer, which means I can print on cotton fabric. Wow. So this is This is my. Can you see it?
So cool. Wow.
So these
so cool
images. I purchased these images from Shutterstock, and then I printed them. And here's my sigil, which is I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, are you a Stark? No,
I'm a goat.
You're a goat. Oh, sorry.
I'm a goat. I climb mountains.
That's it.
Wow.
That's so cool.
I also saw Bernie because of, I can't remember the Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, I watched the first episode and it was too distressing for me to go on to the second one. But Bernie from Eurogliders, he was constantly saying under the eye. And so I don't know if you can see that. I did that for Bernie. There's an under the eye. But one of the things I've been doing since I've been actually 1 week before we started our first lockdown here in Victoria, I went on a diet, Manny.
Looking very svelte, as you say.
It's very svelte. And so that 1 week before it, and then I really got stuck into the diet, as did my partner, and we just kept dropping weight until nothing fitted, nothing. And so that's why I've been making all these stage gear. Let me show you something else. This is another little number.
Outstanding.
It's gorgeous. It's too big for me. It's too big for me now.
It looks amazing.
So I'm almost dropped 20 kilos. I'm ever so proud of myself.
It is a challenge, isn't it? It really is, but it's a mental thing as much as a physical thing, isn't it? You've got to want to do it, and you have to psychologically be in that place to want to do it in the first instance. And congratulations, because it is an absolute utter challenge. I was much the same, to be honest. To impart what happened to me, I'm a little guy, and I ended up getting to about 103 kilos. And yeah, now I'm sitting around, I think it's about 65 kilos.
No, he's actually less than that. He's closer to 65.
Probably a little bit less. But I know that the first 2 or 3 years, because you lose who you are and you just end up eating and having a lifestyle. And it is the lifestyle that actually allows you to put on the weight. And then you lose the vision of where you're going. And it takes a real mental shift and fortitude to actually realise that where you've been. And it takes 8 years or 10, 12 years to put on. And wow, it's equally as hard to take off. So congratulations, guys. That's an absolute, it's a challenge, but that you overcome. So that's brilliant. Fantastic.
Look, I appreciate what you're saying, but I bought this Dr. Michael Mosley's Fast 800 diet, and it hasn't been that hard. There's been a couple of days where I wanted to eat my neighbour's child, but that's been a couple of days, and it's been like nearly 4 months, and we've dropped 20 kilos.
That's incredible.
Wow.
Very, very. Hats off to you and Councillor Ray.
Yeah, I've just got to keep it off now. I'll get really pissed off if I start getting back into the lint chocolate.
Yes.
So are you going to actually release this as a fashion line, all these new clothes that you're doing? Tell me about that. Is that...
No. I might get into the position where I might take on a couple of jobs that if I can't go back to work. But I, for the most part, I do it for myself because I can. I don't think I'm really good enough to do it for someone else. Although I did get a request from a fan, a lovely, lovely lady who was getting married, and she said, would you be interested in making me one of your suits? Because I wear quite crazy suits on stage that I've made. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be lovely to make a suit for someone? And so I ended up making her 2 suits because I wasn't happy with the first one, and so I made her a second one as well. And then she had the choice, and she looked gorgeous on a wedding day, and I felt so proud.
Oh, you've always been the best dressed artist that we've worked with.
Absolutely.
You, like, whenever we've had you on the festival, you sort of
absolutely
stand out. It's fantastic. So I was hoping you were going to do a fashion line. I think that would be.
I'd love to. I'd love to do a fashion line if all I had to do was design it and just make the first one and then say, okay, off you go and you make it. You can produce it. I wouldn't be interested in producing it. I think that's a whole new ball game.
Well, anyone listening out there, if you want to come and fund this, great.
Yeah. I've got plenty of ideas.
Oh, no, I love it. It's great. Look, we really hope that things actually get better in Victoria and that the second wave finishes sooner rather than later. But it's 6 weeks that you're going to be locked down initially, aren't you, to start with?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, fingers crossed you can actually make those shows at the end of the year.
Fingers crossed. And if I can't, then we'll do it when we can.
Exactly. Grace, how good was it to actually catch up with you? Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. It was wonderful to see you again.
And it's lovely to see you. I'm so vain. I didn't put my glasses on. Look at you, you gorgeous thing.
Oh, God, look at that. See, you got to have the glasses. Too much time on the screen. That's the unfortunate reality of 2020 business, isn't it? All right, Grace, we'll leave it there, and good luck with everything, and we will stay in touch with you and see how you're going.
See you, Lady Grace.
Yeah.
See you.
Grace, see
Bye.
ya.